If you have just bought yourself a DSLR camera and you want to understand how you can use that camera to get the best out of it, or if you're planning to get one, this video is for you. Let us get started on how to use a DSLR camera for photography. So let us assume that you have bought yourself a budget-friendly DSLR camera like a Canon 200D, 800D, or a Nikon D3500 or a Nikon D5600. These cameras, they are budget friendly, so most beginners can afford them. They give you the option to interchange lenses. So if you have multiple lenses, you can try them with these cameras and find the lens that is giving you the cleanest image, maybe. Also, because they are all 24 megapixels, they will give you very good image quality. That is the good thing about these beginner-friendly cameras. Now, once you get hold of this camera, when do you start? The first thing you need to start is learning how to set up aperture, ISO, and shutter speed. Aperture controls the amount of light coming into a camera by regulating the entry point. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller by changing the F number. ISO, on the other hand, regulates the sensitivity of the camera sensor to light. So the higher the ISO number, the higher the sensitivity, the brighter the image, but the more the noisy the image becomes. Shutter speed, on the other hand, is the duration which light is captured in. It is measured in fractions of a second. For instance, you can take your picture in half a second, so that will be 1/2 shutter speed. And the longer you take, the more light you capture. The faster you take the image, like 1/2000 of a second, the less the light you capture. So you need to understand, if you want to use a higher shutter speed, are you going to use the aperture or the ISO to compensate for the light you lost by using a higher shutter speed? Also, if you set a very small aperture like f16, which means it will let in little amount of light, you also need to understand if you want to compensate with ISO or shutter speed. So now, what determines whether you want to use the aperture as the main factor, then compensate with ISO or shutter speed? So for aperture, if you want to create depth in your image, or if you want to remove depth from your image, that is regulated by the aperture. For instance, if you want to capture an image that has blurred background, you will need to use a wide open aperture, which will lay emphasis on the subject while the rest of the background remains blurred. For that reason, you will need to compensate with ISO or shutter speed, because by opening up the aperture you are letting in a lot of light. It means now you need a lower ISO, because you don't want the sensor to be very sensitive to light. You will also need a high shutter speed so that you can capture light in a short period of time, so that you don't end up capturing a lot of light, destroying your image. That is what happens when you want to get in depth. You regulate using the aperture and compensate with ISO and shutter speed. When you are capturing your images at night or in low light situations, even if you open up your aperture, you might find that you are still not collecting enough light. In that case, then you need to increase the ISO, make the sensor a little more sensitive to light. And if that is not enough, you can also slow the shutter speed so that you can capture light for a longer duration of time, and you are capturing pictures of something that is in motion. It means that you have a very short duration of time to capture that image. for that reason, you will need to capture that image in a very short duration time, which means you will need a higher shutter speed, like 1/2000 of a second. Now, because 1/2000 of a second is such a short duration of time, you will need to gather in a lot of light in that short duration. So how do you compensate for that? You can increase the ISO, make the sensor more sensitive to light. Also, you can change the aperture, open it up so that you can let in a lot of light. And once you do that, you will be able to capture an image in motion that is correctly exposed. So those are the basic things you need to understand when you want to get started using a DSLR camera. You can try different exercises with this. Try capturing something that is in motion. Try capturing a correctly exposed image in low light situations. Try compensating with ISO or shutter speed or aperture where necessary. Also try capturing images that have blurred background and compensating with ISO. Every single time you do that, make sure that the light meter is always at the min low. That is what indicates that your image is correctly exposed. And that is how you get started on using a DSLR camera for photography. Welcome to my channel. Keep coming around. More content every single time you come around, and that is it for today. See you in the next video.
JM Photography KE Imagement.